welcome to the mid-year seminar on time management. And it's again my pleasure to introduce Dr. Harjot Singh. He's our seminar coordinator and he's our moderator for the program. Harjot Singh is a keynote speaker, an author, and a coach with focus on physician professional success. He helps doctors master skills never taught in medical training so they can achieve a bold professional life. He speaks at national level meetings and in boardrooms across the country. He also focuses on organizational level change, working with C-suite leaders to design tailored programs. Dr. Singh is a practicing physician, chief of telemedicine at Kingsview Behavioral Health, and on faculty at the American College of Healthcare Executives. Harjot's work is informed by all three of these perspectives, and his internet home is harjotsinghmd.com. On a personal level, I want to thank him for all of his help in putting together this mid-year and all of the previous mid-years, and specifically all of the help he's given me in working on this project. He's truly a man of insight and compassion, and I appreciate him very much, and I'm very honored to introduce him.
Thank you. Well, welcome everyone. We have a full house here, and I thank you for trusting me to put together this year's program again. It is a huge leap of trust that makes such a program possible, and a great deal of vision as well. Because a program like this, which takes the leap from just information to experience, and then experience to transformation, that is hard. And because there are, as people are out there, you can see that they are, everyone is trying to have their own view and version of what time management should be like, as opposed to us being physicians. And we have our sights are on a different place, which is evidence. We know evidence doesn't always work. We know it's always messy. We know numbers are always like all over the place. But the best thing is it has a direction which is always goes towards the truth. And it serves the people as opposed to having any other purpose. So having that in mind, I'm very thankful that we're meeting here together to get this done. Okay. So during the meeting, I would really recommend, suggest that you use the chat. And I asked people earlier to use the chat. Can you hear me? Can everyone hear me? Okay. Then can you please also say in the chat, yes or hi? So I would know that you are here and you know how to use chat. So in the chat, you will be commenting. Yes. Oh, thank you. We have people saying hi, hello. So, and can you please mute yourself? And that way we can just continue. And, you could, that's it in the chat. Yes. Hi, hello. Hi, Carol. Hi, Libby. Hi, Diana. And hi, Kristen. Tracy. Yes. Greetings from El Paso, Dr. Rahman, iPad, Benjamin Chak. Yes. Igor Benenson. Hi, Igor. So so that way we can communicate in chat. And I will be paying attention to the chat as we go. And as you will learn that we have some very brave people who have become my co-teachers in this thing. And their stories are so close to your experience. It's so much more helpful and useful for you to hear what they have to say. So at this point, yes, thank you. Hello, everyone. Now, one last question for the chat. Where are you? I'm in Albuquerque, New Mexico. So can you tell me in the chat, where are you? Pittsburgh, Tennessee, Nashville, Pittsburgh, still at work, New York City, Fort Worth, Texas, New Jersey, Albuquerque, New Jersey, Michigan, Altoona, Fort Lauderdale, Bozeman, I think it's Fleetwood, Niskayuna, Granbury, Texas. Man, you guys are throwing lots of curveballs. Because some of these places I have never heard about. Okay, wonderful. Philadelphia, Pittsburgh, Philadelphia. Wonderful. It seems like, when we started, most of us here were from the West, but now it seems like our friends from East Coast have joined in and they have overtaken the whole room. Okay, wonderful. So as we talk today, feel free to ask questions in the chat. Just ask away. Ask whatever you feel like speaking. Okay. And we will be recording this as well. So this will be available to you later on as well to watch at your leisure. So enjoy as we go. And one last thing, tomorrow's Zoom link is different. So just remember that this link is only for today. Tomorrow has a different Zoom link. That's all. So now, before we begin, let me share something very quickly, which is just to set sort of like the structure to this whole thing, that because sometimes you want to know what we are going to do or what we have been doing. Pretty much from July till now, we started preparing this meeting for you, this workshop for you back in July. So I want to tell you what we have been doing since then. Okay. So let's take a look at that first, and then I'll invite in people who are going to be presenting with me. Okay, that's the name of the workshop, which is that in our day-to-day life, how we can stop feeling overworked and overwhelmed to feel like we are optimized. And that's all. And because this is also an educational conference, the American Osteopathic Colleges of Ophthalmology and Otolaryngology and Head and Neck Surgery gives you CME credits out of this. And any questions about CME credits, please reach out to Ralph McLish, and you know how to reach him, and just let him know if I can help answer any questions about this. It's fairly simple thing. It's not like the first time you're doing this. Okay, so the next is that the idea that over time, we have come up with new ideas about what time management and productivity means. And I was very surprised when I read the 7 parts of Osteopathic Pledge. And there was one part, which is number 4, which struck me, which was, by the way, does anybody remember Osteopathic Pledge? I mean, it's 7 parts, so it's very long, and so I don't expect that you remember each and every part. So part number 4 is that every physician must commit to lifelong learning. Isn't that beautiful? We know that people who commit to lifelong learning live longer, live happier and healthier. So there is such a beautiful thing written in the pledge itself. And of course, we have a lot of myths about time management, which in the last 8-9 years or so, a lot of evidence has come up which says, that's very, very bad idea. So we will talk about evidence-based interventions, and you can start managing your time the right way, which is healthy for you, starting now. So does that sound like a good deal? You can use in the chat. So does this sound like a good deal? Because it has a lot to do with lifelong learning. And by the way, we have weird minds, because when we talk about time management, we start thinking about a different unit of time. But lifetime is also a time. So having a lifetime of lifelong learning, that's what we're going to focus on. Okay. So that's where you might be wondering, who am I and why am I doing all this? Dr. Morris gave a very nice introduction, and that's what he was talking about. I'm a co-author of that book, Enhanced Physician Engagement, as well, which is from healthcare publishing by the American College of Healthcare Executives. But most of all, I'm very passionate about helping my fellow physicians live bold professional lives, no matter what they do. Doctors have such amazing intellectual prowess up there. So besides medicine, the idea that we have a lot of scaffolding and structure in our training, but as soon as the training ends, that scaffolding goes away and the new challenges come up. How do we face them? And how that has to be done by us. Nobody else is going to come and help us. I still practice medicine. I am part of the leadership team at Kingsview Telemedicine in California. So I go through what we all go through. Whatever struggles are there, we all share them. So in that sense, I see my role as somebody who's maybe, a little bit more experience in certain things and not like who has mastered everything. And in that way, I always give example of this gentleman. Have you ever met him? Who knows about him? So he's my ideal. So just like he helps his students see the potential, that he's not just a farm boy. He was trying to be a Starfleet officer or whatever officer academy he was trying to go to, but that he was the most powerful Jedi in the universe. So in that sense, I have been working with doctors on this thing since 2016. And I'm very proud to say one thing, which is I always change my mind. When new evidence comes up, I change my mind and I start changing how I'm teaching or coaching. So some people don't like that. Some people created a formula in the 70s and still trying to sell that. That's not how medicine works, and that's not how any of this should work. So this is what we did in July. We sent out an ad to all the members of the college. And surprisingly, we were sounding pretty sexist, I guess. We should have sent, men and women wanted or people wanted. But lots of women said back, well, what do you mean? We can do it too. I said, oh, okay. Well, the idea was that we needed volunteers who would co-facilitate, who would basically learn what evidence-based time management techniques are out there, practice them, see how it works, what doesn't work, and then share them back with you. That was the simple premise. And in that premise, we had 11 people who stood up and they took the risk. I know sometimes doctors can be risk averse, but these 11 brave people stood up and said, well, I'm going to do it. And if you remember, we had done a similar workshop last year, and some people are from last year as well, but we have lots of new faces in here. And I'll introduce to you each one of these people one by one, and they'll tell you what happened with them. So is that a good deal? Yeah? Is that a good deal? Yes. Yes. So tell me in the chat. Yes. Okay. So I have done really nothing extra special with them that we're not going to do with you. It was pretty simple that, and you will have all the materials that they had. So the idea is that in our CME workshops, we pay too much stress on knowledge sometimes, information-based knowledge. Whereas when our own life is involved, experience and having a sense of feeling like a change that's going to be permanent is more important. So we started with 5 insights. The first insight was this, that in the last 25 years, the field of positive psychology has shown that no matter which aspect of our life we take, in order for us to thrive, these 5 things have to be present. Positive emotions, engagement, positive relations, meaning, and accomplishment. When it gets down to time management, what's your guess? Between these 5, which one gets talked about the most? Tell me in the chat. Between these 5, positive emotions, engagement, positive relations, meanings, and accomplishment, which one gets talked about the most when it comes to time management. Accomplishment. Thank you, Brittany. That's exactly right. And accomplishment. Yes, thank you. Thank you, Dr. Morris. Thank you, Dr. Solano. So that's exactly right. So when people start talking time management, it's all about do this, overstuff your things. However, research shows that trying to accomplish things which don't have any meaning, which lead to lack of engagement from your work, lack of flow in your work, don't create positive relationships or positive emotions. Those accomplishments are actually a source of ill-being, the opposite of well-being. And that's why they are not sustainable. That's where merging the meaning and accomplishment is what we have to do. That's what we focused on as insight number 1. That's where doing the right things versus doing things right. So choosing to do the right things makes you effective in your time management. That's the insight number 1 that we started with. That's a Tate Schoenfeld study. He's one of the biggest researchers. He's a doctor, was at Mayo Clinic, now at Stanford. This is a 2009 study. Isn't that surprising? This was done in 2007, and then 2009 it was published. It says that once a doctor starts spending more than 20% of their time doing meaningful things, the burnout goes away. Which means you can try to do all you want. If things are not meaningful, you don't feel effective, and it actually backfires. The second insight was this: that time is objective. We know, what objective time means. You can take a clock and you can, show somebody how long a minute is, 60 seconds. The same for you, same for me. However, time also has a subjective side to it, an emotional side to it. The old Greeks had 2 terms for time. So when they would talk about objective time, they would call it chronos. But when they would talk about subjective time, they called it kairos. So we humans have known this for a long time. For example, if you're in a party where you want to be, the hour goes by in like 5 minutes. Whereas if you're in a boring lecture, the same hour can feel like 4 hours long, or a place where you don't want to be. That's insight number 2. And then the thing is that time has a speed, and this is, by the way, newer research. Any guesses what happens to time as we age? Does it speed up or does it slow down? What do you think? Tell me in the chat. With age, what happens to the subjective feeling of time? Speeds up, speeds up. Yes, thank you. Faster. It goes faster and faster. So yes, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. So this is where the idea that the subjective time also has another thing to it, which is with age, it changes. Our perception of time starts to change, which means we have an emotional value of time as well as we age. By the way, does anybody know Daniel Solano? He's going to present today. He's one of the co-presenters. He's an author. Yes, thank you. Brittany said yes. So you see, the idea is, he said something, you see, because we were communicating. Lots of people said lots of very, very wise things. But this one thing is like such a beautiful gist of this thing. I've been trying to say this for a while, and he said it so beautifully in just these 7 words. He said, money is really our time in disguise. Which means that as we age, we become wise at something, especially exchanging time with money. But subjectively speaking, sometimes we still have a hard time with the effort part of it. How much effort will it take? And a lot of the barriers that we face in managing time have nothing to do with time, money, or effort. They have more to do with identity, such as, I don't do that. We don't do that. A common example I shared, a couple approached me and they were really starved for time and they didn't have children. I said, well, where do you spend your time? Well, they were fixing a house they had bought. Okay, well, fix it. They were both doctors and they lived in Midwest. They had both grown up in Midwest. And so the question came up, well, why don't you hire somebody? Well, we don't. Well, what do you mean you don't? Well, we both come from, families of modest means, and it would be seen as pretentious for us to hire somebody. Can you imagine? They've been suffering for over a year. And then the idea that, they had to change this idea about who they were, what their identity was, and how their actions will have to change based on that. So money is really time in disguise, but how we relate to money, how we relate to time and effort has a lot to do with our identity, where our deepest core values and core emotions are hiding. So even when we know what we have to do or what we have to stop doing, we struggle with these things. Okay, that was the insight number 3. Then insight number 4 was very simple. By the way, there is a branch of psychology emerging called quotidian psychology. Who has heard this word, quotidian? Doctors use this a lot. It's called QD. Has anybody ever written a prescription that says QD? What does it mean, QD? Anybody? Once a day. That's what it means. Yeah, Daniel. Once, but once a day. So quotidian is once daily. Yes, thank you, Dr. Rahman. So daily, once a day. Ordinary, everyday life, mundane life, which gets ignored in studies because most of the studies are about when things go wrong. Our medicine is entirely about when things go wrong, and or even when things go wrong in normal development. Let's say, for example, a marriage took place and now it's not working out well, and then something is to be done, as opposed to paying attention to daily life, mundane life, and how that life is to be lived, and how you can bring meaning and how you can feel accomplished every day, day after day. So what unit of time will you be using instead of saying, well, I will have a project and I will work on that, then I will feel a sense of accomplishment, versus, no, you don't need to do that to feel a sense of accomplishment. So ordinary, everyday, quotidian life. The mind starts playing tricks on us. Instead of thinking of time as time, and we start focusing on, when I'm doing time management, then I'm focusing on this time. When I'm doing my well-being, then I'm focusing on a different unit of time. When I'm setting my goals, I'm setting a different unit of time. And that is very confusing. And that's where realizing that we have to know which time to focus on. And for this, we did focus on immediate time and a little bit of a short-term time. The idea being that you don't have to wait to achieve big goals or to show that you have accomplished this, versus, no, I need to make my time, quotidian time, meaningful and full of energy. So that exchange is what we talked about a lot. And the last insight is this one, which is osteopathic pledge of lifelong learning. But there's one clarification I want to make here. Generally speaking, when we are talking about learning, we're talking about this concept of learning. Pedagogy. Child learning. Where the idea that you're dependent on someone else to tell you what to do, your experience doesn't play a lot of role into it. And it depends more on if you are biologically ready or not, or if the society is pressuring you into it or not. And there is a sort of a sense that you learn it now and then you can apply it later. And the topic is more important. Skill is more important. Competency is more important. And there is an outward pressure to do this. Is that clear? So pedagogy, does it sound like a lot of CMEs are done like that in a pedagogical way? Yeah? Okay, whereas andragogy, teaching adults, having adults who are self-directed, and the learners themselves and their experiences are the resource of learning. And it has to do with your roles that you play. There is immediacy of application because there is a sense that it should help you now. The postponement, and it's problem-centered, and even if you make mistakes, even if things go wrong, they are seen as sources of learning. And it's intrinsically motivated. This transition has to happen, and I'm really of the big thing that all our CMEs, all our post residency or post fellowship learning should be like this. There are ways to set this up, and I had to learn how to do this, so there's a lot of learning here that we have to do. Okay, so that's how we started. And basically, the idea that before the program, just like you, and you have this as well, just like you, there were some readings and there were some videos to watch. And Ralph has already sent those videos and readings to you. And please make use of them. That's worth 2 CME hours. Those expand on these 5 insights that I just shared with you. And there is really only one reading and one video in there where the evidence is weak, but everything else has solid, long evidence. A study is discussed, which was carried on for 70, well, it is still going on, but when the presenter is talking, it was going on for 75 years with 724 participants, out of which 60 are still alive. And now there are 2,000 children are in the study. Have you ever heard of a study like that? No? Yeah? Okay. Do you know which study I'm talking about? Any guesses? In the chat, tell me. Which study had 724 men? There was no woman in the study. 75 years still going on, 60 are still alive. 2,000 of their children are still in the study. That's right. Harvard study, 50 points to Anthony Grosso. So that's the Harvard men study. That study is discussed in there. And what do we do with time? The study that's discussed where there were 55 psychologists who worked for 3 years, millions of participants still collecting data. The only evidence-based study of what in our character and what in our virtues is powerful enough that we start to thrive once we start using them. Any guesses which study is that? Virtues in action via character strength study. So that's also part of the assessment that I asked you to do. So please do that as well, your strengths assessment. So that's the sort of level of evidence that I want you to be familiar with. Otherwise, the mind can be scattered. You hear a podcast and they're talking something, and you read some article somewhere, they're talking about something. The evidence is so weak that you feel like you're just doing some scattershot approach versus starting with something foundational. Very good. And then overall, we had 3 parts to the strategy. You add meaning and energy to your life. It was pretty simple. In a day, you do things that are high energy or high meaning, low energy, but have very high meaning. High energy, but low meaning. Low energy and really like meaningless things we do all day long. So that was our strategy, to use this as a big guide to enhance or conserve energy with high energy, high meaning things. And actually, most participants loved the lower right-hand corner, low energy, high meaning things. So, okay, tell me in the chat, what is, okay, let's look at all four. What is a high energy, high meaning thing in your life that you do every day? Tell me in your chat. Takes energy, but is very meaningful. Surgery, yes, that's right. Workout at the gym, surgery. Yes, what else? What else? Anything with my daughter, yes, takes energy. Family time, energy, play with kids. Okay, very good, yes. So all of these are examples. Surgery, yes. So a doctor doesn't have to look far, by the way. Most people think that in a doctor's life, doing patient work takes energy, takes a lot of focus, but is very meaningful. But now this lower right-hand corner, what doesn't take a lot of energy, but is very meaningful? What can be that? Sleep, yes. Thank you. Sleep, yes. What else? What else? Okay, something you do awake. Relating to pets. Yes, that's right. Hanging with family, yes. Doesn't take energy. Reading doesn't take energy. Very meaningful. TV, yes. What else? What else? Doesn't take a lot of energy, but is very meaningful. Prayer doesn't take a lot of energy, can be very meaningful. Yes, what else? How about talking to your staff? Anybody, do you think that takes a lot of energy, or you don't know how to do that? Because that's something that over time, drip, 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 can be very low energy and high meaning. I'm just sharing with you, what we discussed since July. Meditation, low energy, high meaning. So now let's look at things that take a lot of energy, but have very little meaning in a doctor's life or your life. What do you think? What's that? Charting, yes. That conflict or discussions, yes. Epic, which is also charting, yes. The bane, taxes, doing taxes, yes, and paying them, yes. What else? Meetings, does anybody love meetings? Corporate meetings? Answering ER calls, yes. Especially middle of the night, yes. High energy, low meaning, yes. Okay, what about low energy, low meaning? Very low energy things, but really don't do anything to bring meaning to your life. We could have started there, but TV, yes, many people think TV does that. Social media, yes, that's right. That's right. Social media for sure, yes. Ugh, look at that expression. Scrolling social media, yes. And most people say these kind of things, TV, social media, that are low energy. So that's where, if you can cut back or manage things which have low meaning and increase things which have high meaning, and then exchange some sort of energy, was our strategy to manage these things. That was strategy number one. And second part was know and use your strengths. I already told you. How many people have ever taken a personality test? And which one did you take? Tell me in the chat. Some sort of personality test. Myers-Briggs. Thank you, doctor. Yes, Briggs, I think. What else? There are two which are most common, Myers-Briggs and DISC. Several tests. Okay. What if I told you, oh, Enneagram, DISC a long time ago, yes. Now, what if I told you that Myers-Briggs, Enneagram, and DISC are all fake and pseudoscience? What would you say to that? And I'm saying that, right? I can be sued for saying that. We are being recorded. What would you say that? Yes, thank you. And I know some of you are Googling right now. You can Google Myers-Briggs pseudoscience and you will see what I'm talking about. The only evidence-based character assessment, which tells you what your virtues are and your strengths are, is this one. I'm very proud that I came across a while ago, and over time I have become really good at this thing and they're looking at it from many different aspects. I would really, yeah, 16 personalities. So, but VIA Institute, this one is the only one which we know that is evidence-based. So that was our strategy number 2. And when you do this test, these 6 virtues and each virtue with its strengths show up. And each one of you is unique because you will have top 5, which are called signature strengths, which will be your own. And you can develop any of the strengths. In fact, sometimes we overuse strengths as adults, and that creates more problems than our weaknesses. And that's where the top 5 are called signature strengths, mainly because they're easy for you. They energize you. You're used to using them. So that sort of a thing. But you can really develop any of them and use them appropriately. So this was our second one. So 3-pronged strategy. First one, energy meaning quadrant. Second was to use your signature strengths. And third one was make high yield changes now and then defend them. Sharing with others is also defending them, like they're going to teach you. But they're the ones who are going to get the most benefit from it by teaching you. Experiencing it is defending it. Talking about your successes, talking about what didn't work is all defending it because it's a commitment. So this was our 3-part strategy that we used. Okay. So what we did was I shared approximately 30 time management strategies and techniques. And you have this in your post-program practice. And you will have this PowerPoint as well as a PDF once we are done with it. And of these, some were about your mindset. Some were about just the tactics. Some take only 2 seconds a week. Some will take 2 to 3 minutes. And some take a little more, maybe 5 to 10 minutes a week. The idea was that you pick 3 to 5 of them out of the 30. And this list changed as, by the way, these teachers taught me back, and I changed the descriptions and I changed how they were to be done as I went along. But as we went, I shared evidence behind them as well. And there's a lot of it, so I can share more. But some are strategies more around mind. Some are techniques and tactics. So you will see the distinction as we go. So I'll tell you the 30 of them. So first one is this one. My weekly mortal countdown. What is that? Let me tell you what it is. In your weekly mortal countdown, you take out your calculator. Do you have your calculator? Do you have your cell phone with you? Yes. So take out the calculator on the cell phone. Multiply how old are you in years with 52. That's your first number. Second number is based on your family history, your health history, your lifestyle. Take a wild guess how long you expect to live. "95 is good. Thank you, Brittany. Yes, that's fine. That's so. Now subtract the first number from the second one. That'll give you the number of weeks you have left to live. And the activity is that once you have calculated it, once a week, you write down how many weeks you have left, because now you have one less every week, one less. That's it. That's the whole activity. And then see how it feels. Any guesses how it would feel to do this once a week? How many weeks you have left? What will be the effect on you if you did this? I see everybody became very quiet. Could cause anxiety, yes. I see the chat has gone quiet. It may cause anxiety, yes. It may help bring things into focus. It can be depressing. All these are human experiences. It can be sad to look at. But the main purpose is over time, make your time is meaningful. How to make time meaningful? So, formula is how old are you multiplied by 52. How long you expect to live multiplied by 52. And subtract this one, the first number from the second. That's how many weeks you have left. And then you write it down once a week, how many you have left. Says, yes, Dr. Rahman, that's exactly what you get down to, which is at some point, it starts giving you insights. This is an emotional activity, and we human beings are emotional beings. Yes. Yes. So yes, thank you. Helped me to realize how much time I have left, how much I could still do with all that time. It really helped me put that in perspective. That's right. So now the second activity was, and doctors are sometimes not used to it, especially if you're in private practice, but let's say it's December 15th and your boss or somebody you respect or somebody in the organization is doing your performance review. What do you want this review to say? It's a one-time activity. It shouldn't take you more than 10 minutes. What do you want your workplace performance review to say? So we're not even saying that you will suddenly start doing those things to achieve them. The idea is just to write the performance review and then notice the effect on your time management or how you spend your time of that. And its other counterpart, which is a cultural thing, which is common in America, which is family holiday letter. Again, December 15th, people send out these holiday letters, Christmas letters, and they say, well, our family did this year. You know, Johnny grew up and went to college, and Susie's doing this, and I'm doing this, and you know, we're doing that kind of a thing. People send pictures of whatever they were doing. Now they make collages, digital collages. So the idea that you write this and see how it affects your time with your family between now and December. That's the whole activity. It shouldn't take you more than 10 minutes. It's not even a wish list. It just says, what do you want to write in that one? The fourth one is, it's a different timeline now. You see, we were talking about week, then we went to the year. Now we're talking about a lifetime. Let's say you live to 95. So Brittany, let's say you do live to 95 and you have grandchildren, adult grandchildren. What do you want them to say at your funeral? This takes more than 10 minutes. But the idea is to do it and then see how it starts to affect your time management. And the next is this one. The idea here is that we move from having a strategy, we move into a tactic. You pick something you're going to start doing, stop doing, do more of or less of, just one thing. And then do it once a week and then defend it. That was it. That was the activity. This is very interesting. I learned whoop, not whoops. I learned whoop in an evidence-based entrepreneurship learning workshop. This was originally made for low-income women to teach them entrepreneurship. And they would say, yeah, entrepreneurship is fine, but here I'm drowning every day with, problems, which I don't know what to do with. So they came up with one of the simplest ways how you can learn to do problem solving, no matter how big the problem is. And this is the acronym. So what is the problem, which is, what is the problem? What are your options? What are the obstacles? And what's the immediate plan? And in your resources, you have David Allen teaching this. He says this is how naturally we humans solve problems. Whereas in our workplace settings and in organizational settings, they always start with some kind of a plan and they try to cascade it down instead of asking people, what's the problem? Isn't that amazing how we have created workplaces where we don't go and ask people what's the problem? So S is my addition, which is what would you do differently if you used your strengths? What would you do if you used your strengths? So whoop is evidence-based. I just added S because we know using strengths increases your chances of success many, many fold. The seventh technique was just make a pledge. Whatever change you are making, make a public pledge. I'm doing this from now on, or I will do this if I don't do that. Sometimes we make these pledges just to ourselves, kind of like a New Year resolution, or sometimes we just tell our spouse and that's it. But this is like going and telling your team, from now on, I will be doing this. From now on, we're going to be doing, things differently like this. But making a pledge, commitment to that. Generally speaking, $5 is enough for a doctor to start changing their quick behaviors. Okay, restorative sleep. What one change can you make restorative so you will have sleep, which is good for you? One change, and then defend it. One change, just one change. There's an article from Academy of Lifestyle Medicine in your readings, in your pre-program prep, on the importance of restorative sleep and why it's important for us. And your doctor, Okay, the next change was, well begun is half done. In the 1940s, a Lithuanian psychologist named Bluma Zygarnik came up with the psychological explanation for this. If we start something, it's easy for us to go back to it. So the most practical application of this is, the night before you go to sleep, you write down 3 to 5 things you will do the next day. And they shouldn't take you more than 5 to 10 minutes to do. So you shouldn't write down, I will plan my vacation. You should not write down, I will do yoga or I will go for a walk. No, no, no. It's something like, I'll show you. And in fact, there was some confusion about this. And because I've been doing it for, since 2006 or 7, when I learned this, I shared one of mine. This is what I shared. So I had to order some brackets. I had to ask my accountant about something. I had to do a timesheet. And I'm interviewing Dr. Kevin Post. And I had to ask some clarification from Ralph. So something I had to do with the library. And where I put a question mark is that wasn't really a thing to do. If I could have something quickly, I could do. Otherwise, I was not going to do it. And the one at top, I ended up not doing because there was an uproar. What? You're canceling that? No, no, no. We need that. Okay, fine. So I did not cancel that one. So, but does this example sound clear? So, because sometimes this is a confusing one. It shouldn't take you more than it takes you to drink a cup of coffee to do these things is the criteria. And over time, you start automating many of these things, delegating some of these things. So this well begun is half done is a very powerful technique. Yummy fika breaks. Who knows where fika comes from? Anybody? Anybody in the tell me in the chat. Do you know or no? You don't know what fika comes from. Any guesses? Fika is coffee flipped. It's a Swedish tradition. And once a day in the morning at workplace, you have a small cup of coffee with a small cookie or something like that. And generally you talk about what happened yesterday evening at home or some such thing. It's a good task, a good way of, making companionship and just having, stress levels coming down. Informal talks in a workplace is what fika breaks are about. And surprisingly, we don't take them. You can take it alone, but it shouldn't be more than 15 minutes, 10 to 15 minutes. So once a day. Yeah, and I was saying start by doing once a week instead of once a day, because our unit of time we were focused on was once a week. The next activity is combine two strengths to beat one problem, because we overuse one. So combine two. For example, if you have honesty as your strength, and Dr. Graining, who will be presenting tomorrow, last year, she and I were talking about honesty as a strength, and we discussed that honesty alone, which sometimes we say brutal honesty, is just plain brutality. There's nothing honest about it. So if you combine honesty with kindness, for example, some people's strengths were spirituality, which is love of a higher order. So why don't you apply it to fellow human beings? So love and spirituality can go together as opposed to just one of them. So combining two strengths, humor, which can be a good strength, can sound callous in some places. So if you combine humor with let's say some kind of temperance, like self-regulation, then you will beat problems very, very easily. You will be much more successful. So when you look at your strengths document, combining two strengths is even more powerful than using one of them. And stop overusing them. So really the best way is start combining them. So the researcher Ryan Nemec in your pre-program prep, he talks about that if one strength is like a little pilot light that you have to grow, but when you use them, they're like a beam of light. But when you combine them, they give you a glow inside. That's the difference when you start using them and combining them and use them appropriately. Movie night gym. Haha, this is a funny one. So based on the strengths, and by the way, I love watching movies. I hope you do too. Movies are our way of telling stories now. And based on one culture versus another, we tell one kind of stories. We have one way of storytelling. So in your attachments or in your documents, we have two documents attached for you. And the activity is based on your signature strengths, you pick one movie and watch it. And in the document, I have a few questions for you, such as, you can see which strength is the character using. They're using more than one. So they're not just using one. I have just made an artificial distinction, one versus the other. And I have put in some international movies. But then Dr. Solano had an idea. He said we should have one list for families as well. So I made a second one, which has a family-friendly movies. But then, children are like such a huge age group. So you'll have to figure out which one you think is appropriate or not. But movie night, Jim, but then discussing it, following it up with a discussion, saying the questions up front. So your documents have questions, simple 4 questions, and then following up and then discussing how can we use it in our life. Start with your signature strengths. So pick a movie on creativity or love or appreciation of beauty and wonder, that kind of thing. So pick one movie, one at a time. Isn't that a fun activity to do? And one breath meditation. This is one of the most powerful forms of meditation. We will do other meditations today and tomorrow. But in my experience, if you practice this one, you will get the most benefit. So, this is something that is equivalent of, even if you do flossing, that's, not done very well, versus if somebody says, we will take you for a $6,000 super duper flossing once in 6 months. Which one do you think is more effective? So tell me in the chat. Twice a day, half-assed flossing versus once in 6 months, super duper cleaning that costs $6,000. Which one do you think in the long run is going to be more effective? Twice a day, BID, half-assed flossing. Yes. And by the way, anything worth doing half-assed is worth doing full-assed. Go for it. So yes, one breath meditation is equivalent of half-assed flossing. If done over time, will give you way more benefit than any fancy meditation, because you and me and we have all the hard time, finding time for it. And all the meditations we're going to give you will be less than 10 minutes. How about we do this right now and you will see what I'm talking about. One breath meditation is just plain bringing yourself where you are. So you take a deep breath in, we'll take a deep breath out, and we will say, with this breath, I come all the way here, and then a smile. That's it. That's the whole activity. Okay, so let's do it right now. With this breath, I come all the way here. It works very well during transitions. Yes, thank you, Daniel. It helps you get out of your mind and connect with body. Yes. You saw a difficult patient. You want to serve the next one well. You have a difficult note to write. You came out of a procedure where you're like, this one took, more work than others, and the note has to be different, but you want to go into the next one quickly. You reach home, you have 3 notes to write, but you want to spend time with your family without ruining your mind going to those 3 notes. This is magical for that thing. This is where so remember, one breath meditation has way more uses than any other meditation I know. Okay, so this is one breath meditation. This everybody liked. Email mastery. Email has 2 parts, and this goes, by the way, for any messaging. There's an outbox. We send things out, and we receive things, and what do we do with them? So in stop outbox mayhem means you stop creating mayhem first. You can have your staff trained on this. Any email or message you send, ask what you want at the beginning. My friend Kevin O'Connor, he's faculty at ACH, he says, always serve dessert first in emails and messages and everything. Dessert comes first. What you want should come at the beginning. Use bold, italics, numbers, paragraphs. Okay. And when you are sending messages, just ask one thing per message. Stop the re chains. Oh my goodness. And you know what I'm talking about? The re chain, and the 20th message is going on and it's on something else at that point. And finally, learn to schedule emails. Whatever system you have, learn to schedule emails. Okay, there are only 6 reasons for an email or a message to go out. There's not a 7th one. Please save everybody else time and cut down on their time wastage. Message number 1, end of message. You can just write down in the subject of the email, I'm 5 minutes late, end of message. The email pops up 5 minutes late, end of message. They don't have to open it. Even in a text, 10 minutes late, end of message. So that little thing says, this is it. I don't have to open it. Second is FYI, no need to answer. This is just for your information. Third is, I need information by this time. I need your input or opinion by this time. So this is not just information. This is, a little bit more subjective. So I need that by this time. Action needed by this time. And if none of that is working, then let's meet by this time and why. That's it. There are only 6 reasons for an email or message to go out. Please start using it. So that was one activity. And then email mastery, number 2, was to tame your inbox 3 times a day, no more than 21 minutes at a time. And if at all possible, train your staff to run interference. That's such a beautiful word. Run interference to save you from all the interruptions. We know that every interruption may cost up to 2 hours of focus. So if you can train your staff to run interference for you, but you yourself commit that you will take care of the messages 3 times a day, no more than 21 minutes each time. That was it. That was the technique we talked about. Now, this is a mental thing. If you have an overwhelm of things to do, decide mentally what will you do today. And don't say, I do this or I do that. For example, I prefer snowballs over avalanches. So avalanche or eat the frog is where you do the most difficult or unpleasant thing first, and then you do the other things. It's fine to do that. Snowball is you do the easy things first, and then get down to the other one. And speaking from experience, most of us do paperwork anyway, so it's like that difficult note. So by the time I'm done with the easy ones, that difficult one has already cooked up at the back of my mind. But this is not better than the avalanche. If you like avalanche, do avalanche, or snowball, do snowball, or try the other one and see which one works better for you when you're taking care of an overwhelming situation. The next is say no more. Oh, a lot of people loved it very much. What does it show? What does the picture show? Anybody? It's a family. It's a family picture. So the idea is that you will learn to say the word no more number of times. But if somebody is asking you to commit your time to something and you don't want to do that, to find quick motivation, this picture is at the back of your cell phone and you say, hold on a minute, let me check my schedule. What you're looking at is the faces of the people you have to face who expect you to be with them. So you can look at that and say, oh, I have to be somewhere else. That's this technique called say no more. Okay. This came out of coaching doctors with burnout. And this was a doctor who taught me this technique. And she said, oh, I've been doing that. She took a picture and then a picture of her family and then put that in the background. She said, if I commit to something else, I have to go tell them why I can't be with them. So that's the technique. Say no more. Savoring, we'll do tomorrow morning. It's a luxuriating eating meditation. You know, we mindlessly eat, but to do it mindfully, meaningfully. So tomorrow morning we will start. Please bring a citrus. Banana works too. Citrus, banana, they both work. I will be using citrus. So savoring was one activity. There are, by the way, other forms of savoring. For example, just reminiscing about a vacation is also savoring. Anticipating a vacation is also savoring. In the moment, experiencing the awe is also savoring. The savoring has more than one way of doing it. It just is a method of attending to and enhancing the pleasure, attending to something and then enhancing the pleasure, the depth and the duration of pleasure. That's savoring. Then the next one was break the cynical cocoons of burnout with compassion. I learned this, and I should have written this here, from James Gaunt. Anybody know who James Gaunt is? Anybody tell me in the chat. Do you know who James Gaunt is? Oh, yeah. James is he's one of our presenters. Yes. He's an otolaryngologist out of Missouri. And last year, he was doing this. And I didn't know what was the best thing to say, because I was used to coaching, so everyone would come up with their own way. But he said something that if he would, because cynicism is one of three parts of burnout, and being cynically together on some superficial thing, and we are all in the same boat, but then spreading more cynicism is popular, is common in physician culture. And it's called cocooning, by the way, in group therapy, where there's something superficial is seen as we are together, as opposed to seeing each other as different human beings. And he said something. He said, you know what? I asked him, hey, what did you say? He said, oh, you know what? I would say something like, I'm just trying to make things better for myself right now. So isn't that a beautiful thing to say without blaming anyone? And yes, Tracy's saying, love saying this in front of my colleagues. Yes. You say it as gently as you can without blaming anyone. And even if they persist on it, the answer is, man, I told you, you sound like you're having a difficult time, but I'm really trying to make things better for myself right now. That was the activity. This was the whole activity. That if you ever find yourself in a cynical cocoon, that's what you will say. So you can escape getting caught up in cynicism and wasting your time or energy, but come out without blaming anyone else or shaming anyone else. Okay? So this is all about time, by the way, and quality of your time. Huddles. Every surgeon should do them. Every doctor should do them. And the two questions in a huddle, which have very high productivity in terms of staff engagement, staff retention, and staff loyalty, are these two. Do you know what you have to do? Do you have everything to get that done? There are some weekly questions, but we didn't go into them because we said start huddles and really make them more effective just by going over the list of patients you have to see. Do you know what you have to do? You have everything to get that done. That's it. And at the end of the day, having a debrief and a cheer. But the two questions which are high yield, did you get to be your best? And what's the one thing we can make better? And start by sharing your own things. I got a new pen, or I thought, I should buy better this thing, or I use better this thing. And so share your own improvement first. And did you get to be your best? What did you do that was your best today? What's the one thing that we can do to make what we can make better? So debriefs and cheers. See, now we are getting into more advanced things. Now, EMR is funny. There are so many EMRs, there are so many versions of it. And I haven't found one single thing that cracks the code on every EMR. So I shared 3 parts to it. One is the mindset of it. Second is the actual physicality of it, which is the keystrokes. And third is what can be done at a systemic level. But now we're talking advanced things, more strategic things, and really things that take more work than what we can possibly even do from July till now. But just hear what these 3 things are. At a mindset level, this acceptance that it's here, that it wasn't the devil who sat in her den to create this, to make life hell for all of us. It's just here. Second, to stop being perfect and stop shaming yourself and others. So perfection is about, you don't have to be grammatically accurate. Yes, thank you, James. So James took this on himself, what he did with EMR. So tomorrow we have an EMR special, I'm happy to announce. And Dr. Gaunt will be teaching us about how he dealt with these 3 things in his practice. So the idea that we have this expectation we should leave work on time and we should absolutely, finish work and then go home. We shouldn't do work at home. We shame each other over these kind of things so much. What's the big deal if you wrote 1 note at home? At least don't feel guilty or shamed about it. But with 1 breath meditation, you can go home. And at 9 p.m. after everyone's sleeping, you say, I need 10 minutes. Go take another breath, 1 breath, and then go do that. Then come back. You can take another 1 breath in there. But don't shame yourself or anyone over these kind of things. So the mindset of, yes, it's part of my life. That's what I do. That kind of thing. The second was keystrokes. Use templates as much as you can, and I know you do, but work on them, make them better over time. If at all possible, do team notes. So the notes get populated, but then train your team to write better notes. So you have to write less and less and less. And see if you can get a scribe. I have no experience with AI, which is coming. Nuance, which is Dragon, has created a new one called DAX. I haven't used it. So which listens to the doctor and the patient talking and creates a note. And there's more than 1 player in this game. I think Microsoft Azure has combined with Epic, I think, or someone, and they are going to do something about it. And there was big news in hospital circuits. There was a 3-day outage with Azure last week, I think. So there's all kinds of things that are going on in this field. But generally speaking, that seeing 2 to 5 patients a day extra pays for the scribe, but it may save a doctor 4 to 6 hours or 2 to 6 hours worth of writing and typing keystrokes every day. So that idea. However, we exist in difficult bureaucracies, and that's where the system comes in. Is the system going to allow a scribe to be there or not? At a system level, are there any power users that need to be identified and then rewarded for that? And how struggling stragglers will be identified? And see, now we're talking very advanced things. And finally, if you can, change the EMR. So we're talking things which take way more work than setting your mind to it. For example, for changing the EMR, it will take 3 to 9 months worth of campaigning around this thing. But what would be like the first step in that direction? Yes. So Dr. Solano is saying, I came with 3 scribes, kept it going when I took over. It's worth it. Yes, exactly. So that's where a lot of the times at a personal level or at an organizational level, I have seen identity to be a bigger problem. I don't do this. We don't do this, rather than learning a wise exchange of effort and time with money. You'll be surprised at how many doctors or systems start saying, we don't do this, that kind of thing. So that's where identity to be a bigger struggle than actually using a scribe. The next is monthly reviews with your team. It is an advanced huddle in a way where strategy comes into play. What have we learned over? And that A means it's advanced. Sneaky meeting facilitator manual. Haha. That is in your attachments. So in a meeting, there can be two kind of facilitators. There's the main facilitator, and most doctors have no training in running meetings. And in a meeting, you can have a sneaky facilitator. And that document explains what you can do if the meeting's going off topic, what you can say from the back of the room, being totally respectful. If you want the meeting to document something, what if you want more people to pitch in, or if you want somebody who's just taking over the meeting to become quiet, this manual, 2-page manual, will save you a lot of time and energy. You can take it with you in the meeting and read it from that. And that's what it's one of your attachments. So it's an advanced activity. The next one is delegation. Doctors need to learn how to delegate so they can save time. So how to define what has to be done, how to map it together, what has to be done, then watching them do it, and then following up with support are the 4 steps to delegation. And creating, documents as you go. This is the last one. A journal club for community of fun and growth. At this point, data is emerging that just like the general population, there's a lot of loneliness in doctors, which reduces the quality of their time, how meaningful a doctor feels in their practice and life, and the idea that currently at this point, we are not serving each other to tackle this loneliness as a problem. Has anybody, by the way, I mean, I am not forcing you to say yes or no, but have you seen this to be an issue among doctors, or have you seen it yourself or somebody else, where even when you are among lots of people, there can be loneliness? What do you think about that? Yes, no, what do you think? That we are also part of this epidemic that's going around of loneliness. By the way, this was the Dr. Murthy, Dr. Vivek Murthy, who was the last Surgeon General. This was his agenda. Then the pandemic broke out. Just like WHO's agenda was workplace health. And then the pandemic broke out. So our Surgeon General's next agenda was loneliness. And he wrote a book about this thing as well. Yes, so Christina is saying sometimes when you're around a lot of people, it amplifies loneliness. You can be lonely in a marriage. You can feel lonely in a family outing. So that's where traditionally in a workplace, what do we do in our journal club? Do we run pedagogical journal clubs or andragogical journal clubs? Tell me, are we running still childlike learning, knowledge, information-based journal clubs, or experiential, transformational journal clubs? Tell me in the chat. Pedagogical or andragogical? What do we end up doing in our journal clubs? You can see P for pedagogical, A for andragogical. What do you think? P or A? What do we do more of? And that's why nobody wants to come to them. P. We do more of P. Yes, thank you. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. And one of the best ways is, now I give you permission to do journal club this way. Let's go back. What was the evidence-based character and virtues based activity I told you, which is evidence-based? Which one was that? Which will be very useful. Anybody remember that? After you have done your assessment, what was the one fun activity I said about strengths that you can do, which will also be a good journal club to do? Movies! Yes! Thank you, Libby. Watching movies with pizza. That will be much more useful journal club. If you, and over time, let's say even if you watch 12 movies in a year, but everyone got to see more than one strength in a movie and then you got to discuss it. It's a proper scientific meeting happening at that point. There's nothing wrong with it. You're not lying about it. But it's a storytelling in a different medium with underlying science of strength building. So these were the 29 activities that I shared with our brave explorers and our teachers. And starting middle of July till now, each one of them picked 3 to 5 of them. They did them. Some did daily, some did once a week. A lot of confusion back and forth. I learned so much from it. So that was it. But now at this point, are you curious what they did? I am very curious, by the way, because I didn't tell them what to say. They can come in and say, hey, that this was like a waste of time. They can say that, right? Because I didn't coach them into saying good things only. Like I said, all kinds of things can be part of learning, including failure, including things that didn't work out or were too challenging. So tell me in the chat, are you excited? Do you want to learn what they learned? Do you want to hear their stories? Anybody who wants to learn their story, say yes, no? Yes, thank you, thank you. Yes, absolutely, yes. Thank you, Ellen. Thank you, Anthony. Yes, of course. Thank you, Brittany. So let's get going. So, uh, and so at this point, I'm gonna really hand it over to them. I know, when we will be doing some meditations together, and they're short meditations. That's the only time I'm going to come in or maybe give a little bit more context to the whole thing. Otherwise, it has been your workshop. It has been really the people who belong to the college. It's their workshop. And just plain a source of inspiration and education to me. I have absolute pride in saying and getting to know these people over this much time, and how much they trusted me in sharing, especially when things were not going well, when they had a question to ask, when they couldn't figure out what's going on, and then they approached me. And sometimes we would talk for 5 minutes, maybe 30 minutes. We didn't talk like too much, if you ask me. So in that sense, I'm just gonna, okay, let me show you who they are again. There you are. Okay, maybe you already know some of them. And in this much time, maybe they learned something at an information basis. They definitely experienced something. Some of them have told me back how they're feeling transformed, but they're going to tell you their stories their way. So first up is Dr. Libby Smith. She is professor of otolaryngology at UPMC, University of Pittsburgh School of Medicine. She is the director of University of Pittsburgh Voice Center. She's a full professor in the Department of Otolaryngology. In fact, I think she's the only professor there in this combined DO-MD program. And she has like decades of clinical research with more than 60 peer-reviewed papers and more than 10 chapters written. She is the director of the UPMC Voice Center, as I said. She's also the wellness champion for UPMC. And she is also a member of many, many committees. And she said that she's very proud mom of 2 boys. So she's busy getting them to their practices and games and is enjoying watching them grow up and still trying to carve an hour a week to play tennis. And I know one thing about her. She was here in the who's who in athletics in American colleges and universities when she was in college. So, Dr. Smith, a warm welcome. Please, it's your room.
Thank you very much. Clarification, I'm not the only professor, but I'm the only osteopathic professor in our department. So hopefully the other 2 osteopathic physicians will be joining me hopefully soon. All right, let me do the share screen. So I live by my, let's see, how does that look? Does that look good?
Yes, it looks very good.
Okay, so even though we've been doing Zoom meetings and whatnot for years, I still don't like it. But so I live and die by presentations. So for me, it was actually easier for me to look back on the last 2 months by creating a presentation. So that was the reason why I did this. So our task was time management. And here was my kind of thought with it. Really? Because we got so many things going on, and everyone does. Everyone has way more stuff on their plates than they probably want to have at times. Some of it you have to, and some of it you don't have to. And so kind of my goal was to try to focus in on the stuff that I really needed to, and maybe let some of the other stuff go to the side. So this is actually a picture of Hawaii. We were fortunate to get to Maui before it caught fire. And so this was on one of my morning runs with a nice rainbow. And I wanted to start off with this because this is why I want to have the best time management possible so that I can enjoy these moments. So why did I want to be a facilitator? Well, I found the wellness one last year to be really helpful. And from that stemmed me being our department champion. So the ENT department champion, each department within UPMC has a champion. And so we kind of report back to our departments the initiatives that are going on within the institution because UPMC is huge. And then I became kind of made sense that I became the chairwoman of the resident version of the wellness committee. And so kind of my goal is to get it off the ground, and then I hope to hand it off to someone as part of that say no, but I need to kind of get others ready for it. So why did I want to do this? Well, I had such a great experience last time that I wanted to see how I could be better at time management. I actually came in thinking I was pretty good at it. And but there were definitely places along the way where I thought that I could improve, and I was hoping that this would help me with that. So this is kind of my representation of all the things that we're trying to balance. And I don't like the term work-life balance. I think they kind of coexist, and it morphs and changes as to which is our bigger things at that moment that we need to focus on. But even the little things, as seen in this, are absolutely critical to keep everything stable. And so, I wanted to try to figure out how to manage all of those. So, for the pre-readings and the videos, there were 2 things that really kind of stuck out for me. And I wanted to highlight those because they meant a lot to me. The first one was, if anyone has kids and they're young, you guys, everyone is like frustrated with the amount of screen time and TikTok and whatever all that stuff is. I'm on no social media. I'm like a dinosaur. So, I don't understand it, but my kids get really enthralled with it. And there was one of the articles that talked about the default mode network, and it was kind of validating everything I've been saying to the kids, that, when you're on your devices, you're not nice kids, and they're like disengaged, and I can't get them to do anything, and everything's kind of not positive and happy and funny and stuff like that. But if they get in trouble, let's say, and I take away their phone for the weekend, I swear they're the nicest kids on the planet. And so, I actually printed out this article and I gave it to my boys, and they're 12 and 16, so a lot of it was lost. But we sat down and we had like a good like half-hour conversation about why this is so important. And so I thought it was a really nice way to look at the actual science behind it. So if you haven't read it, I definitely recommend it. The other one, which is super impactful for my work, has been passion-driven projects. So there was a article about this. How do you design work that people love so that they do a better job, they stay doing it? I'm in an institution where I don't get to choose how much people get paid. And so they have to really love what they do in order to stay. And so I now, I'm going to talk about later, we just had a big retreat, and part of it was the huddle type of thing. And I had everyone start off, first thing of the thing was welcome to everybody, but hey, what's your passion? In the world of voice, which is where I live, what's your passion? And so some people really didn't have one, and I was like, that's totally cool, right? But some people were really excited about X, Y, or Z. And so we're creating projects around those that they're going to drive, and they're like super ambitious and excited about it. So my goal is that would provide purpose and impact for how they feel they are working within the team. Hopefully that would lead to greater happiness. They feel valued, even though I can't pay them anymore. And you can only say great job so many times. At some point, they have to really feel it themselves. So I did the VIA character strengths, and I actually didn't pull up my one from last year, so I don't know if it was different or not. But these were mine. And so I tried to pick some of the things off of, especially the movie one, because I definitely did that one. We'll get into that in a sec, because I also love movies. So I tried to think of, when I looked at all the list of 20 something things, I was like, these actually kind of make sense. And so I tried to look at my way that I use these in my everyday life. So the activities I chose, I'd already done the one breath meditation that we did last year, and I do it, but without the words. And I do it probably 50 times a day. So I don't know if that's good or bad, but it's a really nice way for me to just kind of clear my head before I go on and do the next task. And so that's become super integrated. I don't even know if I know I think about it, but I don't actively say I'm going to take a breath now. It just kind of happens. I've gotten so much into the routine of it. It's really nice. It's just relaxing. I also kind of did a little bit of the tame email, the 3-2-1, slightly different, but just got rid of all the junk in the email, like in like 3 chunks throughout the day. So I was never overwhelmed with it. So one of the first things I did was clean a corner. And when he was talking to us about like this idea of, pick a space and clean it. Don't clean your whole room, just clean a corner of it and then defend it. I love the defend it. And so I got one of my 2 boys to do this with me. And so I cleaned part of my room, and then he cleaned part of his room, and he has defended it. And I have mostly defended it. It gets half undefended at times, but then I get back to it. And so that was a really nice thing that he and I kind of did together, but in our own spaces. And I feel like this helps me from a time management standpoint, because now I'm not wasting my time bugging him to clean his room or to bring down his dirty clothes or whatever it may be. So, if you keep it clean, I'm trying to instill the idea that if you keep stuff clean, it's less work down the road. Maybe that's analogy to your flossing, brushing teeth analogy. With my other son, I ended up doing the movie night. And these are two of my favorite movies. Shawshank Redemption is my favorite movie of all time. So, and my older son and I had been talking about Dead Poet Society. So this seemed like such a nice thing because both of these fell within my strengths for honesty and prudence. And so, we talked about the movies afterwards, and the ideas that came up were really around, like, how do you listen to people? You stand up for what's right. You should have an opinion and you should feel comfortable voicing it. For Shawshank Redemption, it was a lot of like not being bitter, but still having hope and patience and goals and not being vindictive, although there was a little bit of vindictiveness in the movie at the end. But you think of how the characters are interacting with each other throughout the movie. It's actually beautiful. So those were kind of the home ones that I worked on. I tried to kind of split them up a little bit into both. Email mastery, I guess I was part of the big list of people who use those, and I definitely started doing the titles, and I make a very concerted effort to have my emails be very short and sweet, and one topic per email. And I honestly don't know if this has changed anything because I didn't like test it before, but I'm hoping that it will lead to less emails and less confusion over emails, and which just saves time. I'm so tired of doing the same thing 4 times when it could just be done once. And so with that goal in mind, that was kind of where I've been trying to work on. And then lastly, this is a really big thing. So, as we all do huddles in the OR, and I meet with my whole OR staff before and all this kind of stuff. But I started doing that in the clinic also. So we will actually run through the clinic list and see, what scheduling mishaps do we have? Is there someone who needs a procedure in the middle of the day so that we're ready for it? And that's with the MA, my speech language pathologist, the residents. We all like stand together and we do it. And it takes about 5 minutes, 10 minutes to do, and find it really helpful so we kind of know how the day is going to roll out. I also started doing weekly team meetings, which is educational, but also will hit like if there's issues going through clinics so they don't fester, and everyone has a chance to voice any concerns or thoughts. And then lastly, I've reinstated doing quarterly retreats, which is actually no time at work. So we all go either offsite or hide ourselves in one of the cardiology rooms where no one knows where we are. And we basically go through all the nuts and bolts of what we need to be doing. And the way we start that, as I mentioned, it was, what are your passions? But really the next thing we did was affirmations, where we have everyone go around the table and say something really nice about someone else sitting at the table. And it could be something like, hey, I really appreciate you. Like one of the speech language pathologists grabbed my Diet Coke from the fridge because she knew I was having a tough day and she knew I needed it. I was like, that's awesome. Thank you so much for doing that. And so you get that chance to acknowledge. And it's really nice that everyone then notices that, we do notice the little things, but we don't always say stuff. And saying it in front of others is really powerful so that everyone knows that you did those really cool things. The other thing that in those retreats that we do is when we're going through research projects, we'll basically say, it's a version of what you had said, Harjot, of, what do you need to get this project done, i.e. write a paper, whatever it may be. And then my follow-up is, what can we do to help you? Right? So what resources do we all have, or guidance, or whatever it may be? How can we help you get to the finish line. And sometimes it's like, I don't need anything, but knowing that there's people there to help out and back you up, gets things done. And then it's one thing less on the list that you have to worry about, and you can move on. So those were my activities that I chose. And then I just want to finish with an amazing quote, I think, from Shawshank Redemption. I'm obviously a fan. This is a picture at Haniakala. So I'm not sure if anyone's ever been there. So if you ever go to Maui, you do this the first day you're there, because everyone's time zone's wrong, and you go see the sunrise and in this crater, and it's cold as heck, but absolutely beautiful, absolutely beautiful. So all of these little, I didn't make any big things. I don't like writing stuff down, so that's why I didn't do any of those. But I tried to find little things that I could kind of like throw in through my days. And I don't know how many times a week I did them. It was just whenever it came up, I did it. And so it was probably more than 3-4 times a week at times, depending upon what the things were that I was able to implement. And I felt like it made me feel a little bit more grounded and a little bit less lost in the weeds of all the craziness, which not only helped my time management, but probably helped my well-being also. So I think that there is a link between those two. I know that's topic from last year, but I think they do mesh really well. So that's what I did.
That's it. Fantastic. Thank you very much. Thank you so much for sharing all this. In fact, let me ask people, tell me in the chat, or you can even ask, what question do you have for Dr. Smith? So overall, what did you feel about your sense of time after now 2 months of doing this?
I felt that I was in more control of the
Ah.
time. I don't know if I felt like I had more of it, because I think because of conference schedules, actually my life's busier now than it was by a lot just a couple weeks ago. But I feel that I have a better control of my place in all the chaos, and maybe better management of the delegation that I've asked others to help me with. Less stuff falling through the cracks, that type of thing.
I think the way you used all of these things, it's almost like only a seasoned person will feel like doing it, someone who has that kindness in their heart. We have a question. What were some objections or difficulties did you experience as you tried to implement changes as the wellness champion at your institution? Good question. Thank you, Jana.
That's a great question. So one of the biggest challenges is making change. So I actually sent out a survey monkey to to all the residents, and actually I ended up doing it for the faculty too, for a different kind of project within it. And I guess either way, it's anonymous, you get a lot of amazing responses. And so there were certain things that came out over and over and over, and the challenge is how to modify it, right? Because I'm not in charge of EMR, and I'm not in charge of certain X service, the way they use their residents or whatever it may be. And so that's the challenge. But fortunately, I've got a supportive chair, and the residency director is super supportive. And so between the three of us, and then working with the residents or with the faculty, we try to create moments where we can improve things so that there is better quality of life and stuff like that. But nothing's as fast as you want it to be. And it's never as all-encompassing as you want it to be. And I think of it like it's not a sprint, it's a marathon. And so, we make a little bit of change here, and then you just got to keep plodding forward, make another little change, plod forward, make another little change. So, I found that if I have to look for the long game, not the short game. That's probably the hardest thing.
Thank you. Thank you. This is sort of like the reality of our lives. every one of us. So I don't know who this is. iPhone says, I love how she educated her kids about the default mode network. I'm going to steal that. I want my kids to know too. Please do. This is for us, all of us. The research was done in children, and this paper is by Henry Nasrallah, who is one of the top researchers in psychiatry in Ohio. And I'm talking to a room full of people who work in brain pathways. So what is a vision pathway? The ophthalmologist, that's so we are moving away from studying like small brain structures or individual brain chemicals like dopamine and norepinephrine. No, there are pathways. Different, many structures are involved, and they work like an orchestra as opposed to individual instruments playing. So please read about default mode network. This is a Nobel Prize level discovery. 2007, Marcus Raquel is this neurologist who discovered it. He kind of put it together after 20 years of us talking about this thing. So this is fantastic. Thank you. Thank you. What else? So Dr. Smith, do you have more words of wisdom?
No.
Okay, thank you. That's very wise. Okay, so we can take a break right now, and let's take a break till 5 minutes after the hour. Thank you, Alan. He says, great job. Yes, thank you. Great job. This was fantastic, very brave, and how you took it just from within you to others. That's really a leader's thing to do. Okay, thank you. So let's talk 5 minutes after the hour. And then we will do a short meditation, compassion meditation, which has a lot of time in it. And then we will hear from your next teacher at that time. Thank you.